It seems like each week we hear a story about a child who is killed and the weapon used is a gun.
In Utah, a 3-year-old little girl accidentally shoots and kills her 2-year-old brother.
In Philadelphia, a 2-year-old boy shoots and kills his 11-year-old sister.
And recently, still in the headlines, a 9-year-old girl loses control of an automatic weapon and kills her gun instructor. One can't help but ask, how does this happen?
So, here to help us better protect our children is Evan Avnet, CEO of Tactical American Security Consulting. Thank you so much for coming in with us
Absolutely.
today. What a touchy topic.
Absolutely.
And hard to understand. How do things like this happen?
Well, obviously children are getting access to weapons they shouldn't have access to. So the thing is obviously you got to keep your weapons secure in your residence. These unfortunate, terrible incidents wouldn't happen if children didn't have access to firearms. So, they're getting access to firearms, and unfortunately, accidents happen in that manner. And, the issue with the firearms instructor, and I'm not going to second guess what he did,
right.
But, certainly that might be a firearm that was a little too much for that young lady.
For a 9-year-old
in her training,
right.
During her training progress.
Right. So that begs the question, what age is it's a good age to introduce a child to a firearm?
Well, really that depends. I mean, it depends on whether you're comfortable with your child learning how to shoot. Certainly, children can start shooting early in age, but they have to be able to handle the caliber of firearm that they're firing,
mm-hmm.
and they have to receive proper training with it. So, bottom line is, you probably want to start out with a child with a lower caliber firearm than a higher caliber firearm because it's going to have less recoil. So, 22 caliber, so on and so forth, and then you can start graduating toward larger caliber weapons as they progress in their training and understanding of safety of those firearms.
So you've already touched on it somewhat. Whether you're a new gun owner, whether you have several guns at home, there are certain safety measures that you need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to keep your firearms secure while at home. It's a balance between self-protection, obviously, because an unloaded firearm, in my opinion, in your residence, certainly during a home invasion or something of that nature, or early in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning when someone's breaking into your home, is useless. So you have to be able to balance that with the safety of the firearm itself around children and around people that shouldn't have access to it. And there's different methods of doing that. One is to keep the firearm secure in a safe, obviously, or locked up. Mm-hmm. And they do have rapid access safes now, so you can basically bolt it to your nightstand, and there's different methods, but one is a push button access safe that will pop open and you can retrieve that firearm rapidly, and another one's biometric.
Tell me about the biometric. What if, for instance, and I'm just going to lay something out here.
Sure.
I get a gun, I get a biometric safe, I program my thumbprint into it so that I can get the gun out quickly, but I'm gone for the weekend and there's an invader and my wife is home.
Right.
Now
certainly.
what?
Well, you can enroll multiple fingerprints in it, so it's not just specific to one fingerprint. As long as as long as those people that you want to have access to that firearm are enrolled in the system, they will be able to access it.
Okay. All right, so we have a gun. Obviously, there are some gun safety practices that we should know about.
Sure. Well, obviously, again, you want to keep your gun secure, and that's not only from children, people that shouldn't have access to it, but it's also for criminals. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to have criminals break into your house, steal that gun, and then that gun is used on the street in a street crime. Number one is obviously always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to use it. And unless it's a fatal encounter, or unless you're on a range, your finger should be off the trigger. The gun should be kept secure, obviously, and only those people that are trained how to use it should have access to the weapon. And be sure of what you're shooting at and what's beyond what you're shooting at. So not just foreground, but background as well.
Just beware of your surroundings.
Absolutely.
In case you miss,
mm-hmm.
I guess. Okay, so in Maryland, you've got to have a gun safety course.
That's correct.
What are we talking here? Is this a 6-month course? Am I going to be able to afford this? Am I smart enough to do this?
Yeah, it's actually relatively inexpensive. It's a $65 class, at least our class is $65. It's a 4-hour class, it's 2 hours of classroom and 2 hours of range time. So you get done in a day, and that'll allow you to buy firearms in the future as long as you complete the Maryland State Police application process.
And in Delaware, you train for Delaware as well, right?
That's correct, we do. The Delaware Concealed Carry class is 8 hours. It's a basic NRA class, NRA pistol class, and it's got other emphasis, on concealed carry as well mm-hmm. as Delaware laws and use of force.
What about refreshing? Or how often should you take a refresher course?
Well, certainly that's up to you, depending upon how often you want to be trained with firearms. But the bottom line is we recommend that you go to a range at least once a month, if not once every quarter. The Maryland HQL permit requires a renewal every 10 years. So again, it just depends on how proficient you want to be with your firearm. But understand that shooting is a perishable skill. It's not like bike riding. You have to keep up on it. You have to keep trained with it. Otherwise, really your shooting will diminish rapidly.
Okay, so you teach these courses, but you also have a course on home invasion.
We do. We teach a 4-day class. It's either in home invasion or armed robbery prevention. And basically what we do is the first day is NRA pistol. So that's the basic pistol operation, and on the range shooting at what we call flat targets, which are non-moving, non-judgmental targets. The second day we do tactical pistols. That includes moving and shooting from cover and concealment, what is called slicing the pie, so making yourself less available to the assailant than the assailant is available to you, as well as stress under fire, because bottom line is, or stress inoculated shooting, because bottom line is when you are under a stressful situation, your heart rate's going to elevate, which is going to affect your shooting, and it's also going to affect your judgment. You'll get tunnel vision, you get auditory exclusion, basically you won't hear what's going on around you, and you'll lose fine motor control. So judging how you're going to react under that situation is very important. We also teach the line of fire. Again, judgmental shooting, so some of the targets will be armed, some will be unarmed. And then lastly, we really amp up the pressure, and we'll put you through a course. If you get too close to the barricades, you'll know it. We'll put some paint rounds into the barricade, and just to add a measure of stress and the idea of survivability in a gunfight, we'll hit you with a paint round while you're on that course. So it's really a 4-day course. The last day of the course, we come to your house and stage home invasions and armed robberies, or your place of business. And we do 5 to 8 different scenarios. We evaluate how you react to them, both tactically and lawfully. And some encounters will be fatal, some will be non-fatal. Some will just be trespassers or disorderlies or whatever the story is. And then we have you write a police report and evaluate that. So you have to respect the firearm. Firearm's a tool just like anything else, just like a sawzall or a chainsaw. You wouldn't leave your sawzall running on the coffee table around children, hopefully. So therefore, you shouldn't do the same thing with your firearm. It can be a dangerous instrument if used incorrectly.
Evan, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Terrific information.
And if you would like to learn more about Tactical American Security Consulting, as well as the dates, times, and locations of the various classes they offer, go to WBOT.com and click on our picture at the top of the page.